Welfare Amendment Bill. It's a very appropriate bill to have before the House. It stands out quite clearly that we had a government in for 9 years and they did absolutely nothing. And it is a bit rich to hear the oratory from the other side that we don't have anything in the way of substance that's been done around animal cruelty from that opposition over there. It was appropriate too that we had the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry in front of us at the Select Committee this morning, and he made the point very clearly that there are three pillars that underpin the importance and the value of the New Zealand farming industry, and they were the quality of our food safety, the way we look after our environment, and thirdly, and most importantly, animal welfare. And it's on that basis that we see that the budget 2010 has added another $8.2 million to ensure that New Zealand does have a robust animal welfare legislation, that we keep on looking at the situation and going onward and improving where there is gaps. And effectively, this is worthwhile reflecting on because it did have its beginnings with the outstanding member of Tauranga, Simon Bridges, bringing the bill forward as a member's bill and then having it taken over as a government bill to ensure that something was done, something urgently was done, because we had had a whole decade of lip service with no substance from a very poorly informed and poorly connected Labor government. And when you look across the other side of the benches there, you can understand why, because there is just a total failure to have representation from the primary sector. So when we look at the bill, Mr Chair, we see that it does handle matters in a very constructive way. When we took submissions and we heard the submissions and questioned the submitters, we could see that there was clearly evidence that the way the former legislation was drawn up, that there was a big gap between what was achievable and what was desirable. First of all, you see that the legislation in there in clause 28 talks about the willful ill treatment of animals, and that proved to be an incredibly high threshold to satisfy. And more often than not, Mr Chair, the problem was that it was difficult to prove that willful intent. So the way the law will be constructed in the future is there will be another category introduced, and that category is under 28A and is entitled reckless ill treatment of animals. Now that's going to be a lot easier to prove, because if a person goes out and performs and behaves in a given way, it will be possible far more often to prove that that person was behaving recklessly, as opposed to that willful. And proving willful intent is quite a abstract sort of a definition, and one that can be argued against more often than not. So just to start and frame the value of this piece of legislation, Mr Chair, I think it's very important to put that step in place, because that is the very substance of this piece of legislation, is to give the law some teeth, to make it enforceable. Very often you hear in the public domain that the judges get criticised, but more often than not, the reason why they were being criticised is that people looked at, or the lawyer would look at how he might get the best outcome, and he looked at the willful ill treatment of animals as being probably a 10% chance of success and a 90% chance of failure. They would then fall right back to the basic ill treatment of animals. And so Mr Chair, this bill introduces that new category of reckless ill treatment of animals. It is measured by the very same criteria that willful ill-treatment does.
Call Darian Fenton.